Well, hello, everybody. It's Brother Todd with your Victory Minute. I hope you boys and girls out there are all having a good day. Want to apologize for the sun is about to be in my eyes. I've been out here a little while, and so if I get to dancing this thing around on you, two rather, I forgot to shave this morning. I got to do that at the office when I get there. And three, if I seem like I'm in a about half off mood, I had this thing completely done. I was just about to wrap it up, and some announcement. I forgot to put this thing in airplane mode, and some announcement from some news thing come blowing in here and ruined the whole thing. And I hadn't really gotten a pleasurable spirit over it yet. I fought that cotton picking son. Lord help. I wasted 15 minutes of my life. Anyhow, now I'm wasting your life, huh? Talking about nonsense. Anyway, I found myself down this road. I had some stuff going on in the night. Oh, Yersty, and was thinking about this morning and kind of putting my head around, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I thought I'd kind of maybe help walk you through some decision making, little pointers that might help you if you're really in a press. Uh, uh, Sometime in life, all the circumstances seem to deal all at one time. It seems like every relationship you got with people in the world, something important happens with it all at one time. It seems like in ministry, life, business, whatever, it all seems to come at you sometime in a big rush. And the reality is you can't always be in charge of everything. You can't always by even making good decisions, as I would kind of say, putting my hands on something, be able to move something a certain way. It's just not how life works. The reality is there's a lot of things in life where the circumstances are what they are, and you may come to a point and points in life where the only thing you can do about your situation is decide what your attitude is going to be about it. And so that's a reality of life. But I was thinking about these minutes and thinking about that situation. And last week I talked to you about when I was talking to you about the 20th anniversary coming up, and how we tend to try to operate as a church, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to what's ahead and pressing towards the upper call of God in Christ Jesus. And I hope you can be there on the 15th of October. But I was talking to you about different things that can bind you in the past, right? And the last one I kind of talked about was the difficulties you're dealing with, the circumstances you're dealing with. And I think y'all pretty much got that, but I thought about, well, as talking about this minute, and part of my decision making last night was, okay, well, what do you do? What do you do? Especially sometime when the decisions you make may not necessarily alter what anybody is thinking or what they're going to do or what the situation is. How do you, if nothing else, make sure your attitude, your direction is set properly? And hear what Paul said. He said, reaching forward to those things which are ahead, I press towards the mark. The pressing, that's the working. But that reaching, he said, I reach where? Forward. That's a direction, right? So he's making an intentional decision about the direction he's going to go in it. Okay, again, you may not can dictate everything, but you can make an intentional direction about where your mind's going to be, where your life's going to be, what your decisions are going to be based on. Again, some of you are dealing with circumstances and situations that, frankly, what you decide may not change the reality of the situation, but it can sure enough change the reality of what's going on in your little noggin, okay? And that's where we have to live. We have to live inside our own head. We have to be at peace with, not only be at peace with God, but have the peace of God. And that peace of God, that's a mental thing, okay? That's in our soul. So what am I talking about? What do we do? Well, let me give you 3 things to avoid. Last night, I'll pull you behind the curtain a little bit. Last night I was studying on a lot of things. Lots of different things happening at one time. A lot of them are not things I can do. Frankly, if the things I could do would have worked, they would already happen. So some of it's just what other people are going to do, what other people are going to believe, what other people are going to think, how other people are going to respond. Sometimes it's just the situation is, it's like this world. This world's just, we're moving into the last days. There's certain things just going to happen. Well, what are we going to do? Okay. So I was studying on it, and when I was, old temptations, a couple of them, hit me. Remember, the old devil ain't going to give up on you. Their group ain't going to give up. And so those temptations come. Remember, there's nothing wrong with being tempted. Jesus was tempted. He just didn't sin in it, right? A lot of times when I get tempted, I end up in sin on it. But some of those old temptations come up. I'm going to give you, really two of them come up. And but there's three I'll give you today to avoid, okay? And then I'll tell you what you need to, maybe I say what you need to do. Maybe something be helpful for you, okay? I don't pretend to be your boss. But number one, when you get under lots of pressure, circumstances are going 70 different ways. You can't afford to just rest. And when I say just rest, I don't mean rest in the Lord, because obviously you can do that. I don't mean don't actively wait, because sometimes God does put you in a position where he wants you to wait, okay? And waiting is good training, they say. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about intentional waiting. I'm not talking about where God has you in a season of prayer over it. What I'm talking about is that you do nothing, that you just revert to absolute nothing. You just look for absolute stillness, right? We do this a lot in American modern society. We just veg out. We'll binge watch everything Netflix will put on, right? You look up and you've watched 14 hours of TV and it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's time to get up and go to work again, right? You've just completely tried to zone out. We get so caught up in what's not pressing and what's not important, and it feels like relief to us. It feels like rest. But so much of the time it's really not, because no direction has been set. Remember what he said, reaching forward. He's making a direction, okay? You can't just veg out. You can't just run and hide. Running and hiding won't do it, okay? Whatever it is, it has to be engaged. If nothing else, just the engagement of what your attitude is going to be has to be something you're active in. You cannot just release yourself from the reality of the world, okay? Now, that was one of the temptations that, comes into my head just now. I'm like, no, this has to be, I've got to work this through, because the moments are becoming critical. So, number two, there is the tendency to want to run. Let's get away from this. Let's just run. I mean, how many marriages have been destroyed because somebody I can't take this anymore, just took off running, right? People abandon kids because they just want to run. It is, I got to change jobs. I just can't deal with this. And so we just run from it. We're just trying to escape. We're under pressure. So if it's fight or flight, you have freeze, fight, or flight, and a lot of times it's just that we work ourselves into a panic. That's not what Paul was talking about when he was talking about making a decision toward reaching forward, right? You cannot operate out of a panic. I've told y'all the story on here about me sitting in front of an atlas one day. It's before we had internet in the library, and looking for the most least populated state in the United States of America. And I was convincing myself that I was going to go plant a church there. Now, at the time, I thought it was Alaska, but it ended up being Wyoming. And as soon as I found out that, Wyoming looked better than Alaska. And that's where the Lord started talking to me from. Why are you sitting here looking at this? Why are you looking at this? Well, people were just pressing me from 70 different directions. The reality is that's not changed. I got more pressure from people on me now that, oh, Lord, 10 times as much as I did then. But one of the things I learned is that I can't spend time acting in denial, and I can't just run from it. You just have to make decisions and then remember those decisions. Number three, and thank God this temptation didn't really come at me, but that is to revert. Now, if I'd sat there long enough and I'd let my mind go long enough, and if I hadn't have made some positive decisions, the temptation to revert would have come back. And what I mean by revert is, well, how did you used to handle problems? How did you used to handle difficulties? If you overeat, do you go overeat? What addictive behavior is what I'm talking about? If it was drinking, is it drinking? Is it dope? Whatever it is, what was it? What is it? Promiscuity? What is it? And we tend to want to revert. We think we had some kind of form of comfort in that. We think at least it's something that we know. Maybe we think we know what we're going to get out of it. And so this is where just old-timey backsliding comes in. We get under so much pressure that we just revert to what we were. One of the things I always pray is, Lord, if something happens to my wife, I don't want to be drunk for a week dealing with it. I want to respond properly, right? I don't want to revert. Okay, so if you catch yourself in any of those three things right now, boys and girls, that's not going to work. Listen to me, brother. Listen to me, little sister. That's not where you want to be. So what do you need to do? Well, you really is one of two options. One of them is it depends on where you are already in your life. So if you're already a Christian, and you know you're saved, let me ask you this. Have you recognized that God saved you for a purpose? And you say, well, yeah, Brother Todd, he wanted me to be in heaven with him. Amen. And that's part of it. But that's part of it. It's not the full reality, because if all God wanted to do was save you and take you to heaven, then he would have saved you and either killed you and took you to heaven, or he'd have translated you like Elijah or Enoch or something. Paul said in Philippians 3, before he said, forgetting the things which are behind, right? That's him telling, he said, this one thing I do, right? Had three parts. I'm going to forget, I'm going to reach, I'm going to press. What he said before that was, he said, I want to take hold of that which Christ has took hold of me for. Now he says, well, it sounds confusing. Just think about what he said. I want to get a hold of the very reason that Jesus got a hold of me. Why did Jesus get a hold of me? Paul said. What was his purpose? I want to get a hold of that full purpose. As a Christian, I want to encourage you, whether you've been saved a week or 100 years, is to recognize that you can't live with eternal significance if you don't have eternal purpose. What is it that Christ really saved you for? Because he uniquely gifted you. He's uniquely shaped you. He's given you a heart like nobody else. You have unique abilities, personalities. God's given you spiritual gifts. All of these realities are who you are, and they're here for a particular reason. It may be to put one seed in the ground. It may be to bring in a harvest of 1 billion souls. That's up to the Lord. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about how many talents he gave you. Just worry about using what he gave you, okay? So what I mean first is, if you know, how do you not just rest or run or revert? Well, you remember. You remember. These are the things that really matter. These are the things I'm going to do. There's a moment in every battle where you're going to decide you're not going to quit. There's a moment in every battle where you decide you're going to take one more step, where you're going to press one more. There's always, in a fight, there's always one last thing, if nothing else, you can do. Okay? One of the things I learned in the fire department, there's always something you can do. Even if nothing else in the Christian life, it's dictating the attitude of your mind. Is it going to be dictated along eternal purposes? So everything that comes at me, like last night, when something silly would come into my head, I could discount that because it wasn't connected to the purpose that God has for my life. So if it doesn't fit in that mold, I know it's not from God. Something could be from God if it fits within the mold of eternal purpose. But if it has nothing to do with why Christ took hold of me for, then I can discount it. And it is nothing but a passing temptation. And I don't linger on it. I don't think about it. Didn't plan on it. None of that kind of stuff. Wasn't sitting there last night figuring out how in the world can I move to Timbuktu. No. Right here's where I'm at. Right here's where God sent me, and this is where I'm going to be. So the temptation, I don't get diverted. I don't lose a day in it. If you lose a minute, make sure you don't lose an hour. If you lose an hour, make sure you don't lose a day. Right? You have to remember your purpose. And then, of course, the second part of this is do you recognize that you're made for a purpose? Because if you haven't been saved by Christ yet, or if you've been saved but you haven't took this step of recognizing that we only really live in fullness when we're saved for a purpose, then how do you reach forward? What is it you're going to reach forward toward of anything of real consequence? And watch this, because the world offers lots of counterfeit purposes. But if you're saved, you can spiritually use your eyes to see the end of the thing. Because if you don't know where something is right now, you can always ask, where's it going? Where's it going? Brother Todd, do I need to do this or that? People ask me all the time, is this or that spiritual? Is this or that scriptural? Well, if you don't know, where's it going? Where's it going? What if you decide to make the decisions you're going to make with your family use your spiritual eye, look down the road. Where's this going? Oh, this will be harmful for kids. This will be harmful for my kin folks. This won't work out well in the community. This wouldn't do well for my testimony. Okay, so we can discount it. Is that making sense? I don't want to talk too long. Don't give you a full sermon here. Okay? But you're going to have times in life where the temptation to get back into those things which were, Paul said, forgetting those things which are behind, you're going to have pressure that's going to want to move you there. And it's trying to move you there to move you into something that's not real. So what I'm talking about today is if you're really under some pressure, you got some decisions to make, where are you making those decisions from? What direction? And if the word forward doesn't come out of your little mouth, then brother, sister, you sit down and pray about it and you think on it some. Okay? October the 15th, we're going to be having the 20th anniversary here at the church. I hope that you can come. It'll be at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. If you come we got people coming in from other countries, so I hope you can come. But come on in. We have a big old barbecue dinner. We'll have fun together. I'm looking forward to seeing you if I hadn't seen you in 20 years or if I've never met you. Because really, when we say 20th anniversary, boys and girls, I don't give a rip about yesterday. It's over. It's done. I want to live in tomorrow. I want to live in today towards a tomorrow. And maybe you're part of my family, and we just don't know each other yet. All right? So I hope you get to come. And again, forgive me for that. I had a bunch of old cows when I first pulled up here, thought I was coming to feed them. They were singing a chorus, but after this thing messed up, so anyhow, here we go. I hope y'all enjoyed this very long Victory Minute, and we'll see you on Sunday. Bye-bye.